Hey, friend, I'm Sid Meadows, and I'm a business leader and longtime student of the office furniture industry. And welcome to the Trend Report. I'm excited that you're joining me today because we're going to have an amazing conversation with my guest, Katherine D'Zmura Friedman, the founder and CEO of Thumbprint. And I'm confident you're going to enjoy this conversation as we explore technology and industry disruption. My goal is simple to provide you with valuable insights, information, and resources to help you grow and your business grow. So let's dive into today's conversation. Katherine, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this conversation in so many ways because these are two of my favorite topics, technology and industry disruption. So I'm going to start off straight away with the question. Why is it, in your opinion, that you believe that our industry is ripe and ready for disruption?
Oh, what a great question. Yeah, so I think now is the perfect time. I think we had to get enough past COVID, to realize that we're not going to be returning to the way things were and that we have instead a bigger opportunity on the horizon to build essentially the future and to have a hand in what that future is. Moreover, too, I think that even though we've been using AI in our daily lives for years, spam filters, Google Maps, image searches on the internet,
Mhm.
that's all AI powered. I think when Chat GPT was released a few years ago, it gave, a lot of people for the first time the ability to really up close and personally
Mhm.
sort of understand the power that automation can have.
Mhm.
So I think sort of the two forces that were happening, in the country in general, really made it a great time to think about bringing innovation to our industry. And
Mhm.
I'm a lifelong furniture person. I've been in
Yep.
the data world for over a decade. This is my home. And I've been, learning about these. Learning about technology and kind of trying to figure out what would be the right fit. And so Thumbprint has been in the works for a while, and I
Okay.
think it's the right product for the right group of people at the right time. We have a very mindful and thoughtful approach to what we're building, and the goal is to build something that fits this industry like a glove.
Okay.
And I think we're on target for that.
So, I've had the opportunity to see what you're doing and learn a little bit about it, and I'm excited to share with everybody today. But one of the things I really appreciate is something that you said a second ago, which is we're not going back to the way things were. And I think in a lot of cases, people are starting to really understand that and to believe it, but there's still a group of people that think we're going back. And David Stella, who was on, I forget the episode number just a couple of weeks ago, who's with Cressa Real Estate, said, we ain't selling panels anymore. And though I agree, I also disagree a little bit, but I do agree. But so many people think we're still gonna, that's gonna be the floor plate. It's gonna be full of workstations. And I don't think that's actually the future. I don't think we're going back to the way things were like that. But you also said something I think is also really important, which is we get to, we get to build our future. We get to step into understanding what's happening in the world, what's happening with corporate real estate, and we get to build it and do really cool things. And you're doing really cool things. So let's start. What is Thumbprint?
Yeah, what a great question. I would say, Thumbprint is a lot of things. I would say at its core, it's a wild, crazy idea that you can make a difference in your own community and that, you can really take an idea that you have and a dream that you have and turn it into reality. I think that's what it is at its core.
Mhm.
What it is on a more, practical level is it's a cloud-based platform that wraps its arms around the full design and specification process for commercial furniture, and it automates the most tedious aspects of that process, allowing the user to really focus on the more creative and on the more high impact portions of the process, in developing, the perfect spec package for the client. So I would say that we are tackling, a lot of big challenges, but we're the right people to do it. We have the right team. And at the end of the day, we're taking on two major challenges, which is standardizing product data and moving the industry to the cloud.
All right. So A crazy wild idea. I love that. Sometimes those are the best, right? And do you have the picture of you sitting in your garage like Jeff Bezos starting it, like that you can share in 30 years when you're all over the place? Do you have that
Oh,
picture? Okay,
absolutely.
good.
Oh, absolutely.
But I mean, when you think about wild, crazy ideas, there's so many brands that exist today that started just like that, like a wild, crazy idea. Uber, right? Um, uh, Airbnb, Amazon. I mean, the list goes on and on of wild, crazy ideas. And I'm excited to see how you develop this and grow it. So, cloud based platform wrapping its arms around the industry that is going to standardize data and then move us as an industry to the cloud. So, we're going to dive a little bit further into that. But where did this idea come from? Like, how did you get this wild, crazy idea?
Well, I have been in the dealer world for over a decade. And, I started out as a coordinator and eventually worked my way into sales. I do have a design background. I studied at Parsons, interior design at the graduate level. So I have design in my heart, but I have a sales brain, and it was always like, why is it so hard to do simple things? If I'm pulling a
That's a
package.
great question, by the way.
It is the question,
Mhm.
if I'm pulling a package together and I need to verify lead times, I'm calling up rep by rep,
Mhm.
or checking the corner of every single quote.
Mhm.
I have a, spreadsheet with discounts for every single project, and I have to, double, triple check that, for specifications, we have to constantly essentially do duplicative work, and do it manually. And,
Mhm.
it's very time consuming and tedious. And it's like, surely if we systematize this and surely if we implement some degree of standardization, this rote, every single project has to be done fully, completely from start to finish, can start to dissipate, right? We can
Mhm.
start to automate and we can start to have the industry work more systematically so that we can automatically be getting these updates about lead time changes or making sure that all of your pricing is calculated automatically or whatnot, so that you're freed up to work on more interesting parts of the project and more interesting parts of the job. So that was a big motivator.
So when you think about every solution starts with a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the problems that you're solving, we could talk about industry problems for days, right? Because there's all different types, some really big, some really small, and a whole lot in the middle, right?
Yeah.
What were the problems that you said, let's set out to solve these specific problems or questions, if you will?
Yeah, great question. I would say that the overarching kind of theme was that, the job was very stressful, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't, I felt this, many times, and I know my teammates did, I know my colleagues did, this sort of very intense pressure and stress for
Mm-hmm.
constantly being under a deadline, for constantly having to meet client expectations that were out of whack with reality. So essentially, in order to solve the bigger problem, which was,
Mm-hmm.
turning the furniture design and specification process into something much more satisfying and, easier to navigate, we had to essentially tackle all the different steps, right? So we have to essentially work on solving the hardest problems first. And the hardest problem is, getting the right product at the right price, at the right lead time in front of the client quickly,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we have to essentially constrain the options because there are so many product options.
Yep.
So how do we know that we're showing the appropriate ones? So that's probably, a big
Okay.
undertaking in order to push and pull those options accurately to our users
Yep.
on the cloud. We had to standardize the product data, and that's no small feat.
Sure. Can you
Essentially,
explain what that means? Standardize the product data. So
yeah.
I think I understand it, but I would love to hear your definition of that.
Yeah, I think thinking about it in its broadest sense is usually the most helpful because
Mhm.
we essentially have many, many manufacturers, hundreds, if not thousands,
Yeah.
essentially bring.
3,964 according to Perplexity AI. And I only know that because I wrote my column for Viewpoint magazine that ran in July. I wanted to know how many manufacturers, and I went to Perplexity and said, how many office furniture manufacturers are there? And it said like 3,965 or whatever the number was. I was like, wow, okay. It's a
Wow.
lot.
Yeah, that is good to know. Yeah, so yes, there are thousands of manufacturers,
Mhm.
and they're all doing something similar, but they're doing it differently.
Right.
And as a result, if you're on the other side of the fence, so if you are a designer or a dealer trying to aggregate a big package of options, you essentially have to do the same process many, many times. Now,
Yep.
even in our recent past, that was somewhat manageable because most of the project scope would fall under the umbrella of a major manufacturer. And then there might be sort of a small product offering outside of that ecosystem. However, we found that in this sort of post-COVID era, that the puck has gone towards ancillary, right?
Mhm.
These very complex, large ancillary projects are, are very, they're hard to wrap your arms around. And instead of
Mhm.
having, 6, 10, 12 or so vendors, you can have hundreds.
Yep.
So it becomes exponentially more challenging. So, essentially, yeah, you have to essentially have a standardized data model.
Mhm.
And so it's essentially a universal model that wraps its arms around, the full product offering. And then when specific manufacturers join the platform, their data gets bound against that. So we can push and pull those, options in
Right.
real time accurately and contextually like appropriate depending on the
Mhm.
situation.
All right. So I want to simplify this, I think.
Yeah.
So I manufacture A and I use platform A to house my data. Then manufacturer B, I use platform B, which is completely different than platform A. And then you got another one that using another one, right? So you take the data and you bring it into your system and you standardize manufacturer A and manufacturer B. So it's all in the same context so that it's easy for it to be pulled out of your system. Is that right?
Correct. So some manufacturers call it an executive chair. Some people call it a
Right.
swivel chair. Some people call it a
Mm,
conference chair. Some people call it
sure.
an executive task chair. But at the end of
Mhm.
the day, we as people recognize, oh, this is appropriate to put here. This is appropriate to put
Sure.
there. But if everyone's using, a different lexicon for
Mhm.
essentially the same thing, you can't push and pull. So you need that
Oh,
universal lexicon so you can push and pull.
okay. That makes sense. That chair was a great example, by the way,
Yeah.
to help it because we do, everybody calls it something different, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay. So, stressful job, deadlines. When you start to really think about what we do and at the core, when the designer gets the project for, and I'm talking about a dealer designer for 10,000 square feet, it's a couple of weeks worth of work. There are lots of parts and pieces that have to be laid out and specified. And by the way, each piece, those of you that are in that role know that each piece has a color or a finish that's got to be specified. And then there's typically a price associated with it. And in some brands, a panel, because we're picking on panel systems, a panel is discounted differently than the work surface and then discounted differently than the pedestal. And then the chair is discounted differently. And then this, now you talk about the office for the actual wood furniture, laminate furniture going in the office. But so you're taking that and you're simplifying and making it easier by leveraging the cloud. So tell us about the cloud. I mean, everybody
Yeah.
has access to the cloud. I've got Dropbox and I use Google. I mean, so, but from your perspective, why is it important to move us to the cloud?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, the world the world has gone to the cloud. So, the furniture industry should probably consider being there too.
Yes.
All of the platforms and sort of, online products that we use, social media, whether it's other online collaboration software, it's all cloud-based, and essentially all you need is the internet to run it. Thumbprint you can run on any laptop. Heck, you can even run it on an iPad. That's what we were using in Chicago to prove
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, you can spec a floor plan of furniture with just an iPad.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a certain amount of flexibility that being on the cloud offers. And I think that the way the industry is evolving, that flexibility is going to be so important, right? The
Mm-hmm.
sort of boundaries between sales and design, that's starting to blur. And that's not a bad thing,
Mm-hmm.
but we definitely need to have, flexibility with how we can get the job done. You can be on the go, you can be in the field, you can be at a lunch meeting with your client, and you can be making notes and you can be specking in real time and showing them things if you can do it on the cloud. And, with the way the world's going with work from home and hybrid and all this sort of, asynchronous work,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to just be necessary to keep up with the times.
All right. So let's break it down because I have an advantage over our listeners, most of our listeners. I've seen it twice. I've watched you demo it. So, and we haven't really actually talked about exactly what it is. So, and we don't have the benefit of sharing screens or anything like that at the moment, but give us the basics of what actually is Thumbprint and what does it do?
Yeah, great question. So I would say definitely go to our website. We have a short video that walks you through the platform. We also have a free version up right now. That's like a sandbox, if you will, that you
Sure.
can play with for free. So I would encourage everyone just to
Yep. And
take
we'll
that
be
as
sure that
your
the link to the website is in the show notes for you guys to click on so you don't have to go search for it. But go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah. So essentially, Thumbprint walks you through the design process. The first thing you do is you create a project and then you upload your floor plan, right? And then, right now we're accepting JPEG files. So you can just take a screenshot of a clean partition plan and then you scale it. And then essentially from there, you enter your project requirements. And again, it's like solving for that holy trinity, the right product at the right price,
Mm-hmm.
at the right lead time quickly. So, there's a slider of a per square foot budget. And essentially you just dictate what the, maximum per square foot budget
Mm-hmm.
is. The budgeting calculations are much more nuanced and sophisticated than the UI lets on. We wanted to create something that was very simple and easy to use and that a client can wrap their heads around. But the math in the back end, and I credit my co-founder and CTO, Sasha Perevikovsky, for quarterbacking this,
Mm-hmm.
is actually very sophisticated and nuanced. So you might say my budget is $40 a square foot. And meanwhile, you've uploaded your floor plan and we are reading it with our machine learning algorithms. Um, we understand the usable square feet in the floor plan. We know you have 10,000 usable and we have a $40 square foot budget. So we know the max you're trying to spend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, if you have a $40 square foot budget, the computer understands the full range of pricing for every single item in our database. So every
Wow.
single combination of every single bell and whistle of every single fabric grade. So it's essentially going to pull like it would in a bell curve, right? Remember
Sure.
from class,
Mm-hmm.
most of the items that it's going to at first recommend will be from that general price range. With $40, you'll probably be starting in a mid grade, for example.
Okay, I was going to
But
ask you that question because people like me that are young schooled, let's call it, rather than old school, we didn't grow up talking about price per square foot. And I know I interviewed CBRE and a lot of other people, they want us to talk in price per square foot, but generally as a furniture industry, we don't. So when you do the slider scale for the price per square foot, do you have little icons that say good, better, best on it, or like really great, that so we kind of understand what it means? That because I conceptually have no idea what $40 a square foot looks like versus $100 a square foot.
yeah, great question. So we have it right now in per square foot because that's what the A&D community is
Yep.
probably going to be thinking in. And essentially, once you get to the layout step, you're going to see a dollar amount, a dollar total.
Mm,
So essentially, it's going to be pulling from most of those items within the per budget square foot. It's going to
got it.
balance it though with kind of either side of the budget spectrum to create sort of this like more holistic package that so
Mm-hmm.
you might have some more higher end and some more cost effective options mixed in
Sure.
there as well. And it's optimizing all of those combinations. We are planning to implement a feature where you can just say, don't spend more than $400,000, right? And that's really probably for the furniture minded people.
Yeah.
It's like I can't spend more than this. But we started out using
Sure.
the dollar per square foot, because that's going to be
Mm.
helpful for the A&D community.
Okay.
Um,
So so you can input the floor plan and you said you can put a JPEG in and then it'll scale it for you.
Well, so you'll implement the scale. So whether there's a scale bar on the drawing, or if you want to do 3 feet for a standard door width, you can always
Okay.
use the cheat
Okay,
code.
got it. So the AI reads that, even though my screenshot of my phone is not scaled, I can put it in and say the door is 3 feet, and then it'll figure out the rest, and it'll give me a usable floor plan. Okay,
Correct.
or I can upload an AutoCAD file, and then I go in and say I want this much per square foot, and then you answer some other questions, right?
Yeah. So essentially, we now need to understand the lead time
Mhm.
threshold. So when we work with manufacturers, we're working to have weekly lead time updates from them.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, if their production, for example, if their production lead time is 6 to 8 weeks, we'll go with the higher side of that estimate, and then we'll add another 2 weeks for transit and receiving.
Sure.
So according to us, that would be a 10-week, lead time. Here at Thumbprint, we are cowgirls. We round up. Um,
That's great.
but yeah, it gives a little bit of breathing room there. And then for the manufacturers, we default to mix and match with everyone on our platform. This is great for designers and dealers because it gives you exposure to lots of brands. It gives you exposure to the latest and greatest offerings. However, if you do want to select only certain manufacturers, you do have that ability.
Okay, so they can pick and choose if they want. Okay, so then you pick the aesthetic that you're after, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, we have well, how much background do you want on the style bubbles?
You just as much as you'd like to give, but don't go too deep where we get lost. How's that?
Okay, sounds good. I'll try not to get lost, but essentially, there was a French chef in the 1800s named Auguste Escoffier, and he invented the theory of mother sauces. So in French cuisine, there's all these different sauces, right? But in the late 1800s, it was at this critical juncture in French history where they were starting to institutionalize fine dining and also culinary education. So how do they create this vast catalog of sauces that seem like, oh, all these individual palates and tastes, but in a systematic way that can scale so that each customer in dinner service can get the same taste, so that every student can graduate with the same, taste. So he invented the mother sauces. There were 5: bechamel, velouté, sauce tomate, hollandaise, and the last one I always forget.
I don't know, so I'm learning.
Yeah. But basically, you could make a modification to one. For instance, if you add tarragon to hollandaise sauce, you get béarnaise sauce, right? So essentially, it became a scalable way to wrap your arms around something that seemed vast and infinite and very subjective.
Yep.
So I took that same framework to interior design, right? If you look at the political, economic, and social factors that shape society, it shows and is reflected in our design, right? The bent plywood furniture that was very iconic in the mid-century modern aesthetic, it all came from the Eames, Charles and Ray Eames cultivated it for military application for splints, right, in the war. And then they said, hey, this actually looks really good, why don't we apply it to furniture now that the war's over, right? So essentially what we did was we created 4 kind of mother sauces for interior design, which was modern, mid-century, contemporary, traditional, eclectic, and maybe I need more coffee too.
We just talked about before we record. We talked about needing more coffee. So okay, so you got 4 mother sauces. You picked one,
and then essentially we created some more sort of like sub variants. So essentially, you have 9 different options to choose from. And so essentially what we're doing is it doesn't discriminate against the furniture options on the platform. It's only curating a subset of finishes to apply to the floor plans that get regenerated, right? Because when you go to the next slide, essentially you're programming the space. So each space you can go through and say, is this private office? Is this conference? Is this open work? Is this lounge?
So I want to simplify this. So the floor plan is there in front of me. I've picked my price per square foot. I've picked the aesthetic that I'm after. And then I go into a room and I say, this is a conference room. This is it. I click on it, say, tag it conference room, tag it private office, tag it, a collaboration, tag it cafe or whatever. And so you tag the space and then you pretty much hit the go button, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what happens when you hit the go button?
Well, a lot happens in the back end. So we're basically like the heartbeat of the databases is activated. So it's basically starting to figure out what are the best options, that fit the criteria. And then essentially it populates within a matter of seconds, a fully specified furniture floor plan that is within budget, that meets the lead times, that comes from the manufacturers that you want to see. It meets the program that you've selected. It's a full 3D a model of that exact furniture item down to the part and piece, and it is fully specified, including finishes. based off of the
Based
palette
on
that
what you
you.
selected, right? The palette you
Correct.
selected. Okay. And it's interactive.
Oh, yeah. So all the things you would expect to be able to do in a specification software, you can do. You can add chairs, delete chairs, move chairs, rearrange them, all to your heart's content.
Change the color. You can change the size of the table or the desk, all live on the floor plan.
Oh, absolutely. So all those things that you would expect to be able to do and that you need to have that granular level of control. Again, we're wrapping our arms around the full design process. So we can't just be up here in the conceptual schematic. We have to have the
Mhm.
data from manufacturers to get to the nitty gritty so we can fully specify and get to that final bill of materials. So essentially there's a couple differentiators between Thumbprint and, um, anything else that I've seen to date.
Mhm.
You are able to apply changes, spec changes, across an entire floor plan, right? So if you have, guest chairs across the entire floor
Mhm.
plan and the client says, this blue is too dark, I want something with pop. You can reselect the fabric and boom, you can apply it to like the entire floor plan and you can see that change instantly. So again, it's like helping drive decisions, helping the
Mhm.
client visualize, and also save time and increase accuracy because no one likes making last minute finish
Yeah.
changes.
I
That can
I
lead to
just go
missing.
back to my dealer days and I'm thinking about how long all these processes took and meeting with the client, taking all the programming notes, coming back and meeting with the designer, going through all the programming notes with the designer doing all the work, specifying, giving back to me. I look at it, give her changes back. Then we go to the customer and we get all these changes from the customer. Oh, I want this panel had to be this and I want this chair to be this. Then we go back to the designer and he or she updates it all. Then we go back to the end user. And what you're now talking about is like, this is all like almost instantaneous. You can do it in front of the customer. You can make quick decisions. So faster to market, right? Speed to market is one of the things. So when it's all done, let's say we got through it and everybody's happy, the customer's happy, I'm happy as the dealer salesperson. Um, what's the output? So can I print out like a room by room 3D drawings of each that show the colors and finishes that are photorealistic? Like tell me what that output looks like.
Yeah, great question. So you are able to access a bill of materials. So the output is essentially the BOM. So the
Mm-hmm.
full specifications with the pricing and everything there. We also have an executive summary with pricing because clients, they just always
Mm.
ask those types of questions. You need to be able to answer them quickly. The BOM is organized two ways automatically. It's organized by space type, by, going room by room, and then also by manufacturer. So if you want to see how much am I spending on this manufacturer versus that one, or if I want to see it space by space, depending on how
Mhm.
the client's thinking, we've already done that work for you. We are going to be deploying, by the end of the summer, additional documents. So being able to export a floor plan is absolutely going to be one. We are also going to be implementing the high res rendering window very soon. That's coming.
Awesome.
And then also we're working to automate specification sheets, right?
Mhm.
Dealers are making those one by hand. I personally have made thousands of spec sheets, and there's no reason to do them one by hand if you
Mhm.
have that data in your database. So essentially, we're
Correct.
going to be helping, save a lot of time with that sort of tedium,
Mhm.
so that you can be running the ball faster and harder with the client.
Mhm.
Additionally, we're also looking at the lookbook because that's very critical, and also a little Gantt chart, making sure all your lead times are
Oh,
organized.
that's
Yeah.
really cool. So the lookbook would basically recap everything the customer had in a really quick thing in a PDF. I can email it to you. Then I got a Gantt chart that shows me the full timeline of the scope of the project. So the bill of materials, is that something that can be uploaded into CET or worksheet by Syncly that can then be imported into the dealer's operating system?
Sure. Yeah. The goal is to have to be able just to directly import it into the dealer's ERP.
Mhm.
So that way, again, we're not touching the order entry process. That
Yep.
stays the same. So that would still flow through the dealer as it is today. And everything else subsequently stays the same as well. Order management, delivery, installation. So that's the goal there.
Okay. So I thinking back to my dealer days, and I absolutely know that this is a product that a dealer salesperson or a dealer designer would want to use. but who really is the ideal customer or customers for Thumbprint?
Great question. We all know furniture is a team sport, and you can't go
At
it
least some
alone.
of us think that. Not everybody thinks that, but I agree with you. Yes.
Yeah, furniture is a team sport. So we wanted to create a win-win-win solution for the A&D community, the dealer community, and then manufacturers and their sales reps.
Mhm.
So, we've thought through a lot of the nuances and details of this platform to create a win-win-win solution for those three parties. Because oftentimes the project starts in an A&D designer's hands, and they, work through some of the schematic and programmatic questions with the client. They start to shape the direction of the specification and the budget, and really kind of queuing it up for bringing in a dealer to start, fine tuning and hammering
Mhm.
out some of those questions, double checking the feasibility of everything. And then, of course, they basically prepare it to go to production with the manufacturer. So you can't go it alone. So
Mhm.
Thumbprint is different in that it is very simple to use. There's a very quick learning curve for the software. It's as intuitive as I think furniture software can be. And it's very robust and very powerful as well. So, it's a win-win-win solution. And then later this year, I think this is also going to be a game changer. We're launching collaboration. So because we're cloud-based, we'll be able to have the designer from the design firm, representatives from the dealer, and potentially also manufacturers and their sales reps all on the project together, being able to leave comments, and leave notes for each other in real time. So that real time team communication where everyone's on the same page looking at the same thing,
Mhm.
I think is going to be so helpful for ultimately delivering a really world-class experience for your client.
So I certainly see like an A&D firm, how they could say, okay, Mr. Customer is trying to figure out what they want. Within a day, a design firm could utilize Thumbprint, potentially specify the entire 10,000, 20,000 square foot, give them a realistic budget and a realistic time frame with finishes, mind you, that the client could look at and say, this is great. I like it. We need to make some final changes. Let's get my dealer involved in this. And then the designer shares with the dealer and says, this is what we've done, need some fine tuning. Feel free to swap out some of the products that are similar that maybe you work closer with than some of the ones that are here. But then so that again, you shortening this whole cycle time that sometimes can take months and months and months to get done.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, the reality is, if you have if the sort of tedious part of the process is more efficient, you can spend your time, doing the things that you probably wish you had more time to do.
Yep.
There's so much interesting research coming out that you can be diving into with your client, doing, studies of, client spaces, of their workforce. That's so critical. Also, just deepening your connection with the end user and spending
Mhm.
more time with them, doing material presentations.
Sure.
That's always so important. That sort of, showroom tours, all this type of stuff, all this in-person tactile experience really needs to be first and foremost, I think. And the computer, I think, can help us keep track of lead time changes.
Yeah, they
you
can.
know.
Yes, they can. So the idea came up about 3 years ago. You guys have been working behind the scenes, kind of getting all this put together. You got a whole team of people, most of which are like programmers, right, in the background, kind of doing things. But you came to Neocon and said, we are launching. Like officially has a few people in on your pre-launch. So how was Neocon 2024 for you and Thumbprint?
Oh yeah. Well, I have to, definitely say, we have such an amazing team. I mean, really, it's a really wonderful group of people. Again, my co-founder and CTO, Sasha, she, works with the technical team to deliver, building the, technical aspects of the product. And they've done a really fantastic job. And I have to say, we have a really wonderful product manager, Shane. He brings, big tech polish, and we're really grateful to have him. We've also welcomed Julie Dillon into the circle as well, helping with, front-facing,
Yep.
matters and brand ambassadorship. And she's really off to the races. And it's really been it's really been like a labor of love, I think, because this started out as, just me in this room by myself, with a piece of trace paper. Like, gosh, during COVID, gosh, if I could really make something different and make it
Mhm.
easier for everyone, how could I do it? So it really wasn't, we didn't start building the platform until a year ago. So it took a year to get from basically no lines of code to launch. So we're moving at an incredible velocity. We have a very ambitious roadmap for the end of the calendar year, pushing out some major, key features that I
Mhm.
think are going to make a lot of people really happy. I would say launch was almost surreal because I've been to NeoCon plenty of times,
Mhm.
bringing designers and clients around to showroom tours and hosting people, but this was like a whole different animal. I mean, I came in on Thursday morning, and
Me
as a
too.
devout, as someone who used to be a devout, Sunday to Tuesday, it was very interesting seeing behind the scenes. So we worked with our manufacturers to do trainings for their reps to make sure that they understood how the platform worked. We were posted up at various showrooms
Mhm.
doing demos, which got a lot of traction and attention. And we're also talking, of course, to many manufacturers as well, and to some other industry organizations, for some
Yeah. So
future
I got
planning.
to walk around a little bit, not every day, but a little bit I walk around, and every now and then I'd walk around and I'd to look over at somebody and I'd see you in a conference room with a whole bunch of people presenting. I'm like, there she is. She's out spreading the word. So it was a great show for you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was really fantastic. I mean, it went better than we could have hoped for. I think the response was, very positive. I think again, now is just the right time to be introducing, positive change and, bringing something really thoughtful and, high impact to the industry.
So a long time ago, probably in 2021, I had Amanda Schneider with the founder and president of Think Lab on the show. And Amanda has said this, and I've heard her say it over and over again, but she said something that has just stuck with me. Our industry will be transformed and disrupted not by product, but by processes. And what you're bringing out with Thumbprint, what you've launched with Thumbprint, is a dramatic process change that saves time, creates efficiency, saves money, gets us to the close of closing the sale faster. I think it's fascinating. So, and I'm excited to explore more about it. But how many users do you have signed up right now, or have you launched to people to actually use it beside the free version?
Oh yeah, we're launched and we
Okay,
have users already, so it's
awesome.
exciting. It's every day more and more are signing up, so it's very exciting. Yeah, I would say Amanda's observation is, definitely spot on. I would probably take it to the next level and say it's also disrupted by people. You know, it just takes one person with a dream and a wild idea.
Correct.
you
Just
know
takes one idea. Yep.
to really just really think big for the industry. I think this is a wonderful industry with so many wonderful people. And I think contrary to popular belief, I don't think we're resistant to change or technology. I think we're usually so so under the gun with a deadline and just the stress and pressure of getting things out the
Sure.
door that unless you're really solving the problem, we ain't got time for it.
Mhm.
So I think with furniture, you got to come correct. I think you need to really think things through. And if you're able to do that, I think there's a lot of opportunity. But it really takes understanding the people you're building for. It really takes, a lot of care and effort to understand the idiosyncrasies of this industry. And if that's your passion, then great.
Mhm.
I
And
think there's
it's
a big ocean for you.
the fact that you've been in the industry as long as you've been in the industry, it gives you a unique insight as a founder of a tech company of what we go through on a daily basis and all the little idiosyncrasies that are involved around furniture. So, Katherine, I want to ask you one final question, and it was something you said in our pre-call. Most of you know I have a pre-call with every guest, just kind of talk about the show, make sure they're okay with coming on the show, and random questions from a podcaster. But you said something that I just think is great. You said the tragedy of loving furniture. As a furniture lover, let's talk about that for a minute. What does that actually mean, the tragedy of loving furniture?
Oh man, it's like a contradiction in a way because it's like, I love furniture.
Mhm.
I studied furniture, I collect furniture, I am 100%, a furniture person.
Mhm.
There's no getting out for Catherine.
Me
But it's
either.
it's like, but also too, it's, because of the extremely detailed nature of the work, you're like a ballerina, one little slip and you see it, one little slip of the finger with a finish code, colorway 123 versus colorway
Yeah, and
132,
then you have a disaster on your hand,
and you have
right?
a disaster. So it's like, it's funny because it's like you have to really love it and you have to be dedicated to wanting to
Mm-hmm.
do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that being said, it's like once you're in it, like it's hard to get out of it. And the stress and the pressure to get everything right, on
Mm-hmm.
time always is definitely real. So it's a trade-off, because when everything clicks and comes together, gosh, nothing feels better in the world. Back when I was a dealer salesperson, I always told my team, other dealers take their clients on punch list walkthroughs. We take ours on victory laps.
Oh, I
And
love that.
yeah, we had a very meticulous process. It was
Uh,
very, it was a lot of work, but we were able to catch things before they became problems. And so we would take victory laps with the client at the end of projects, and nothing felt better than seeing it all come together.
so I got to tell you, I mean, that's always been one of my favorite things was being able to see at the end what it looked like and be able to stand back and go, hey, I did that or we did that, right? I mean, look how cool the space looks. But I'm with you. You either when you get into the furniture business, you either love it or you're like, what the heck is this? And I honestly, 30 plus years of a career in this and a variety of different roles, could not imagine doing anything else. And I love still today turning chairs over in a lobby somewhere to look at the chair to like see who made it because that's really cool. And so, yeah, it's a tragedy of loving furniture. Once it gets in your blood, it's not getting out. So,
Oh yeah.
Catherine, I'm so excited for you and Thumbprint and all your team members and our industry about the product and the service, if you will, the tool you're bringing to us. And I really look forward to watching next NeoCon, watching you take your victory lap
Oh,
around the mart and with all the success that you've been able to create with this really cool product. So if our community would like to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
yeah, great question. You can always email me, Catherine at thumbprintfurniture.com. There's a contact us on our website as well, thumbprintfurniture.com. We are very, communicative with people that reach out to us. I'm always happy to talk. So come find us. We're
Awesome.
nice.
We will put all of that information as well as Catherine's LinkedIn profile link down into the show notes. Be sure to click on all that. If you do reach out to her, please let her know that you heard her here on the trend report and that you're coming with some questions. Catherine, it's been a pleasure to meet you. So excited to have you on the show today. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon. So thank you very much. And for all of you listening today, thanks for being here. Go out there and make today great. And we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone.